Ruth Langsford and Eamonn Holmes together for 14 years. To the public, they appeared stable and familiar, nearly untouchable. But in 2024, everything broke apart and the marriage silently drained. They split, they parted, and the story seemed calm. Since then, we've heard Ruth's side. Her version-shaped storyline dominated headlines and determined how people saw the split. Eamonn remained mute. Neither interviews nor clarifications, no objections. Until now, finally speaking at 66, Eamonn Holmes up. And his words affect things. Tone of everything. Reframes how the breakup looks, and more significantly, how Ruth Langsford appears in aftermath. Just what did Eamonn do? Holmes asked why he waited so long. To recount his tale. Join us we get into the details. Eamonn Holmes, the rise, silence, and the untold tale. Long before headlines, breakups, the carefully phrased words, Eamonn Holmes was a Belfast schoolboy. Room-holding training. He Washley family primary school educated, then Malachi College St, and later Dublin Business College. Nothing about that path shouted celebrity. What it suggested was discipline, regularity, early comfort with structure. And that would matter later since Holmes erected entire career on dependability when everything else was unpredictable, live, often chaotic. First real break in 1979 when he entered Ultra Youthful television presenter and farming altar reporter. It wasn't flashy and not national, but genuine broadcasting. It taught him to think quickly and talk to people without performing. From sports came easily to him, then coverage alongside seasoned reporters learning the mechanics of television, the hard way pressure and repetition. By 1982, Ultra Television trusted him enough to hand him the Good Evening anchor chair, their flagship news show, Ultra. He assuming a prior role Hunterford, Gloria. And it was quiet. Significant confidence vote. Holmes read more than scripts. Anymore. He shaped talks, setting the tone, and leading a Northern Irish household fixtured. He went beyond news. He hosted specials, pageants, and live events, showing he could switch serious and light without losing credibility. He departed Ultra Television, joined the BBC in 1986. A promotion, not an escape. In Manchester brought him into open air. BBC One broadcasts nationwide become familiar with speaking to millions instead of thousands. Then came true transformation moment everything. GMTV hired Holmes in 1993. Helped launch its first broadcast. Television in the morning unforgiving. Live and early. You should be sharp when the half of the nation is awake. Holmes thrived there. He joined routines, the soothing voice into the day. Despite tensions appeared behind the scenes, including public dispute with Anthea Turner stayed put, grounded. Roll. He finally left GMTV. 2005 wasn't quiet. He said the show had strayed away from genuine news and leaned devoted to celebrity nonsense. That honesty followed. 6 months later, Sky News put him on front, Sunrise. Holmes settled again. Into early morning routine, alternating co-hosts, but maintaining tone-stable, talkative. Along the he become one of TV's most important flexible presenters, snooker, darts horse racing, tennis, quizzes, panels religious shows similar songs of applaud jete-style games. He didn't pursue prestige. He sought uniformity. Even when he joined This Morning in Holmes immersed into his work in 2006. Finest, making live TV feel unplanned but safe. That method peaked when he started presenting with Ruth Langsford. On screen, they were simple and familiar. Believable. They hosted shows like Gift Wrapped and Eamonn and Ruth. How Others Live, turning their real-life partnership into TV brand. Viewers found it natural. For Holmes, it grew entangled from how the public saw him. But behind the scenes, industry changed. In 2020, Holmes lost a tribunal over his IR35 freelancing status. A moment that compelled him to speak out defend both his contract and value. He called himself one of nationally finest live presenters, and whether folks agreed or not, confidence was obvious. The radio had always his other lane. From late 80s downtown radio to Radio 5 Live, Magic 105.4, Radio 2, Ladder Talk Radio. Holmes handled radio. He could talk longer there. Be less polished and explore deeper. It was his opinions were most evident clearly, and where audiences heard him without studio light filters. By in 2022, he joined GB News to start Brunch Show with Isabel Webster. He'd declared it a place of feeling appreciated, where journalism began first. and where to bend rules just enough for conversation reel. Finally, after decades as the solid, reliable man, Holmes rarely explains himself. Speaking again, not presenting as a guy, finally reading headlines approaching from behind. And once if he does, the story stops. It's from his past. That was always secret before cameras, comments, and need any explanation. Eamonn and Ruth. Private love story that can't handle attention. Eamonn and Ruth's romance didn't start this way. Public romance or TV pairing ideal for falling in love with. It started gently, intentionally, almost gingerly when both more important were timing and moderation. Excitement. Ruth and Eamonn Holmes met Langsford in 1997 due to mutual friend Sally. There was no rush to define or announce them the world. Holmes split from first wife Gabrielle. 2 years. The choice was made early not to reveal the relationship secretly, but respectfully. And that decision predates cameras monitored them. Every action softly set the standard for everything. When they started dating, relationship remained private view. Years later, Langsford looked, recalling that time and explaining Holmes' desire for privacy exclusively strengthened her love for him. She showed the type of man and father he wanted to be, and his integrity passed over into personal life. Far from making her feel concealed, secure. 2 years elapsed before eventually went public. The relationship was established, something substantial. Life progressed quickly thereafter. In 2002, they welcomed their son Jack, a momentous occasion softly altered their center world. Later, Langsford said she found she was pregnant one day before godson Charlie's baptism. Holmes was away, so she informed her dearest friend, first buddy Sam, Charlie's mother. Was in confidentially disclosed momenta life event that doesn't depth need witnesses. She would later call it very wonderful time together, even Holmes's absence. By 2006, their professional and personal life began totally integrate. Their 9th-year relationship, Holmes joined Langsford Fridays This Morning. Langsford was established on the part of the show since 1999, slowly becoming its longest-serving presenter. Working together wasn't easy. Something they pretended was simple. Langsford admitted that working with your partner did challenges, despite admitting they mostly succeeded. As the years later, they became daylight most famous TV face partnerships. They hosted Gift, How the Other Half Lives, Lose Eamonn and Ruth's 4-week Stone 7-year Itch and Do Right. Chemistry became part of them. Public persona line between blending marriage and brand. Holmes once joked about it, the joke that leaving TV simply wasn't possible because viewers won't accept. At the time, sounding fun. In retrospect, it felt like a deeper dedication either realized. 13 years later, 5 years after meeting, Holmes and Gabrielle divorced, finally married in Ealing Hall in Hampshire. A short time after, they bought 6-bedroom Weybridge, Surrey, Hoshan, estimated £3.2 million. It appeared like the last peace-fitting place. Security, success, longevity. Speaking years later on Strictly Come Dancing, Langsford danced about marriage founded on comprehension. Holmes explained, teased her first and quickly the first to surprise her thoughtfully. Even when she was overcome by demand, she believed him in the competition, fully comprehended her. They worked because they believed. Then came 2020 brings a change. Neither of them seemed ready. In NOV, Holmes and Langsford abruptly this morning replaced by Matt O'Leary, Alison Hammond. The decision enraged them. A professional setback. It started a new chapter for me. Obvious split. Langsford stuck around. ITV, staying on Loose Women. Holmes altered his movements. Joined GB News to host Breakfast Show. At first, not in years, their careers longer aligned and apart, they were no longer professionals. By May 2024, the well-kept, the quiet ended. Holmes and Langsford confirmed their marriage was over and they were in procedure of divorce. Spokesperson said work obligations had taken their marriage somewhere directions. The message was serene, well-written and managed. They were resolved to stay friends. They wanted to keep things civil. Official announcement was expected their supporters. But behind the careful set at the conclusion, relationship once based on patient, private, and shared goal. Something was behind that finish. And others. A former object wearing them down before the marriage ended. Because while the split was calmly explained, professionally, the fact is pressure was mounting silently inside Eamonn Holmes. He couldn't outrun himself. Eamonn Holmes. Pain that persisted, camera clipped. For years, viewers observed strength. They didn't see how much strength was borrowed. Under the familiar voice and steady Eamonn Holmes was on-screen combating a deteriorating body let him down. But through it all, Ruth Langsford stood firm at his providing assistance, reassurance, and optimism. But now, their marriage ends, and Holmes begins a new life alone. Those years' disease no longer seems normal noise. Feel like the pressure point where everything changed. Holmes has never concealed his health issues that he frequently mentioned them, sometimes humorously, sometimes brutal honesty. Long before marriage unraveled, his body was under siege. Years of excruciating anguish ended lead to 2016 double hip replacement 3.25-hour surgery after endured severe pain for too long. Then, he compared admitting live television experience. There were nerves beforehand, but no once it began. Even he described when people paid him bizarrely night before heartfelt tribute surgery. An unsettling moment saying farewell without leaving anywhere. He woke to a happy surgeon, wife, and lunch menu provided weird relief, joking that it proved he must still be alive. That humor, that instinct to perform despite suffering, became a recurring topic. 2018 arrived. On what should have been a happy family milestone, Holmes met death that shingles the day his son was born. Declan's wedding. A virus left him, swollen, marked face unrecognizable that appearing years later on. He posted photos of loose women. Tragedy and truthfully discussed how it was horrible. He described shingles. Most adults have dormant bodily parts and can hit suddenly. Looking, he compared the screen photos. Himself to Quasimodo, admitting the situation was shocking. But 2021 started it. His worst deterioration. That unexpected spring, Holmes suffered considerable back discomfort that refused to relax. Pain worsened fast, making him dependent walking stick-mounted. What ensued was the finding that changed everything. 3 slipped discs impair the right leg movement. A diagnosis explained pain but didn't offer relief. Later that year, Holmes admitted his condition had deteriorated a toll on him and his family. He said there were days he couldn't walk, couldn't bend or manage simple duties, and relied on Ruth to help. He admitted his sons were embarrassed by his movement, that losing independence was as painful as the illness. Scans showed the discs, but even then, Holmes hoped the issue would resolve independently. It didn't. Epidural injections helped partially, but not solution. Life grew more restricted, and surgery, Hope's rapid fix, slipped slowly away. Once doctors explained that additional spinal and nerve disorders needed to be addressed first, Holmes said smashed. A year had passed. Badly hurt and wanted an end answer. Stepping down in September 2022 away from GB News to undertake crucial spinal surgery. It was meant the turning point. Instead, it opened the gateway to harsher reality. Despite extensive physiotherapy, Holmes found his mobility intact limited. He clearly discussed how dependent on others for simple chores crushed my spirit. Still sitting filled hours after physiotherapy, guilt weighing on him become another encumbrance. The surgery left his left leg feeble, and merely 2 weeks after recovery, disaster struck. Backward, Holmes fell 18 stairs at his Weybridge home, crashing into the stone floor below. The accident may have killed him. He emerged broken shoulder and further injuries already feeble legs. Later, he admitted the fracture was a major setback that forced him to take more time off yet from work and readjust his expectations again. Not even then did setbacks stop. 1 year after surgery, Holmes stretched spine and neck. September 2023 process, admitting honestly that he couldn't walk properly. He admitted he couldn't run, walk, or do much any activity besides watching television. It wasn't his recovery hoping for. Not even close. By his sole emphasis in 2024 was recovery. Physiotherapy became daily. Routine. A cane or wheelchair appeared. Necessary. While Ruth kept going, she admitted publicly supporting him. Something altered. She admitted that acceptance may be needed his accuracy was never 100%. She spoke about hope while knowing how difficult long-term care is. Even strong families can be. Their marriage is over, so word placement varies. What was once felt like resilience, now resignation. The call to Ruth was misdirected. Here. Presently, Eamonn and marriage ended for Ruth. For months, breakup of Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford's marriage was minimized. Careful language. Health issues, career stress, 2 people wandering in various directions. Sounded moderate, almost soft. But behind closed doors, the ending wasn't real. Unfold gently. It came finally one horrible moment. A moment Ruth was never supposed to hear. And once she used everything they had left, fell apart. The reports say marriage terminated after Ruth's decision astonished revelation. Within their Surrey house, Ian believed Hugh was quiet and comfy. When on the phone, he had no idea Ruth was elsewhere at home, but she heard him. And what she heard wasn't harmless chat. It was cozy, personal. Heard Ruth was shocked. She approached him instantly, and the shock cuts both ways. Ian allegedly had never knew she was there. And by the when he discovered Ruth was there all along, the damage was done. The moment struck Ruth especially difficult due to everything that had happened preceded it. Standing by him for years through serious illness, surgeries, chronic pain, and lost mobility. Devoted to caring, his body failed him. Taught him overhear his intimate conversations with another woman hurt, like betrayal. The teeth. That was just the beginning. Sources claim following the phone fight, marriage lasted longer. Limped on, damaged, frail. But weeks later, Ruth supposedly discovered more. Not overheard this time. Eamonn's laptop has messages. According to accounts, that discovery changed everything. What hope remains gone. Insiders said it was the straw that broke the camel. Back. Timing matters. The dispute over the phone supposedly occurred in April. Laptop messages followed. Weeks later, and then the public announcement. Calm, tightly phrased. A joint announcement confirmed their marriage was over and they were in procedure of divorce. No explanation, no motion, a full stop at the end. 27 years together. The fans were shocked when news broke. 14-year-old marriage, approximately 30 years couple vanished. Not long. Ian's split was public. Moved on. He revealed a new relationship with Katie Alexander. Ruth was publicly single. She focused on herself, friends, and gently regaining her life. Recently, celebrating her birthday with Girls Getaway, Ruth stated for ages nothing. She eventually spoke. In first interview after separation, Ruth detailed what happened. Terrible and bitter separation. She acknowledged the difficulty of procedural divorce and separation partnership spanning much of her adulthood. There was no determination, not bitterness. She stated that relationships breaks down, whether marriage or friendship, a turning point. Either you crumble or recover and move forward. And her decision was to proceed. She confessed her marriage didn't please her. Was over, but she accepted. That she said acceptance enabled her to accept singlehood again, make decisions for herself. Not about holding things together, not compromise, just herself. Sharing a 22-year-old son, Jack, Ian talked carefully but honestly. She also addressed the increased burden of divorce in the public eye. Breakups hurt enough, she explained privately, but whenever a move is monitored and remarked on. Dissection makes it difficult. Still, she recognized scrutiny at the job, and if you can't handling it, she stated you probably should not. If asked about being alone again, Ruth didn't make it seem easy. She said she was okay being alone, but not forever. She explained the difference between spending the weekend alone, realizing every weekend may yours alone. That truth, she requires modification. So it is not precisely where the plot changes. Because while Ruth Langsford worked on pushing forward, the same moment Eamonn Holmes opposite, he started instead of looking forward, gazing back. Not with blame, no courage, but with reflection. Something appears after everything else already broken. Eamonn Holmes, one thing he'd regret alter if he could return. Almost 2 years after marrying Ruth Langsford split. Eamonn Holmes finally reflecting instead of pushing forward. What he admits to date doesn't sound bitter or guilty. I hear something heavier. Regret. Not loud or theatrical. Just the sort that settles when everything else has happened and there's no one it. A new interview. Holmes contemplated his life, the one that vanished with it. Honestly, if he could go back, he would strive to modify anything to better balance his career and in his personal life. No scandal, no denial, just a phrase speaks more than pages of explanation ever could. In particular, when asked about what was his biggest regret, deliberately unanswered. And sometimes unspoken words most weighty. Ruth and Eamonn, co-hosted This Morning Years, announced their split in March 2024 after 14 years of marriage. Their relationship dated back, commencing in the mid-1990s and having a 23-year-old son. For decades, their lives intertwined on film and off. When the split occurred, went beyond a breakup. That felt her ending. Since, both have advanced, although barely different approaches. Holmes started dating Kate Alexander, relationship counselor, while Ruth leaned independent. She opened out about how her dread slowly led to clarity. She admitted initially felt dark, overpowering, and unsure. Though time reduced dread. What replaced it astonished her. Positive, calm, even excitement. She stated that she hasn't delayed relationships marriage, but she's not engaging search either. True revelation, she realized her potential is alone. Independent, strong, at ease alone. What was once seemed frightened now seems open chapter rather than nothing. While Ruth rebuilding emotionally, Ian's body continued to betray him. Following after separation, he underwent more medical procedures, including major spinal surgery, double hip replacement after severe back pain for years pain. He acknowledged the years brutal and excited to see its back. In public, he acknowledged something harder. He had been incapacitated for depending on carers for basic needs for a year daily tasks. Described the experience humiliating and humbling, even as thanked him for his assistance received. Meanwhile, Ruth turned inward. She started counseling afterward. The separation continues today. She discussed power and describing its grounding therapy as a judgment-free area history or assumptions. Someone who listens, inquires properly questions, help her comprehend why certain moments land their path. She stated that even although she knows herself, treatment increased her processing of everything calmly. Professionally, Ruth has thrived. Her career has thrived. She even suggested a return. This morning. If asked about, she presented with Ryland Clark that acted immediately. She'd comply if asked, say yes, especially with Ryland. She called him her TV son. Loved, someone she already gets along with rhythmic. The door isn't closed. There have been lighter times, too. A recent Loose Women episode, former Prime Minister debate medical condition of David Cameron, panelist Malene Klass joked about men's longevity, married while women live longer when not. Ruth reacted rapid and telling. Good to know, she remarked, laughing with the audience. It was short, playful, and incisive. To land. Despite everything, relationship remains. Over Christmas, Ian contacted Ruth, shows respect and wishing her well, speaking at festive awards dinner. He stated clearly. Thought she deserved joy. The words were basic but time-sensitive. Despite divorce, there weighs an attempt at grace. That same Ian celebrated Christmas with Katie, a luxury villa guest in North Yorkshire. He spoke freely about he also has future hopes. Still, he acknowledged to using a walking frame. Daily mobility challenges persist. But he wanted to improve by 2026, even contemplating pioneering stem cell therapy. Determination had stayed with him. So this chapter closes without conclusion, but with reflection. Man gazing back, admitting imbalance. Woman stepping, moving forward, and strengthening. Two formerly parallel lives are no on distinct tracks. No yelling, no spectacles, just wait, anything irreversible. What are your opinions on things occurred between Eamonn and Ruth? Let us comment below. Not forgetting to like, share, subscribe. Also, click your next video screen. You'll like.